Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. We're going to go over this DraftKings main slate. NBA is winding down. Playoffs are just around the corner, so definitely be careful out there. Really good example of that is the Pels. Only 8 guys in there tonight, and pretty much nobody you recognize. We're going to help sift through the madness, though, and hopefully help you win. This video comes free. Please give us a like and a subscribe if it does help you out in any way. If you want finalized core plays and advice for all the major sports that we cover, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFL, and of course NFL when it rolls back around, hit up our Patreon link at the bottom of this video. $5.99 only for an entire month of all of our plays and access to our Discord. So be sure to take advantage of that. That said, let's dive into it position by position we go. Trae Young leads the way at the point guard spot. 9.9K, 49-point fantasy projection. He's going to be owned, but I'm a little hesitant here because the Hawks don't really have much to play for. They're kind of locked into a play-in spot. They're facing the Nets. This game has a big spread. What is it? 13-point spread. He's probable. He's going to play. He's been crushing. Are you playing Trae, or are you a little bit worried about that and maybe the ownership here?
I'll play him. It's a small slate. He's been in really good form. There are a lot of point guards to play on this slate, so I don't really think he's going to be chalky at all. And for that reason, I think he's a pretty good play. Like, he can still get there if the game blows out. They have a high total. If they win, he will have plenty to do with it. If they put up a high point total, obviously he'll be heavily involved. So I'm okay with it, but I don't think I'm going to be prioritizing him too much just because there's so much else to like at point guard.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's early, so things could change, especially if Giannis is out, but this actually could work against that. Trae right now is playing 32% ownership. I know it's a 5-game slate. There are other options, but to me, that is a little bit of a red flag. He's almost 10K. I think I would rather pay $600 more for Cade. I think the Pistons can still move up a slot in the seeding, possibly. So if Cade is in, I think he's a little bit more interesting. We know he has a high ceiling in general. I just think if he's going to be a little bit less owned than Trae, I would get him on my radar. That said, you did mention there are other plays, and there certainly are. You have Ja at 9K, Halliburton at 9.2, and of course Brunson at 8.8. They all look pretty good, but to me, Ja's the one that stands out the most, not because of his projection. It's not the best one out there, but because that game environment with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Memphis Grizzlies, 2-point spread, 231 231 total, and there's a lot on the line here as these guys want to avoid the play-in tournament, so you got to believe they're both going to bring it. How are you feeling about Ja, and what other point guard stands out up top besides the one we already talked about?
I do feel pretty good about Ja. It's not a good matchup, but it is a big game. It has a tight spread. The most meaningful game on the slate for sure. So he's good. I like Cade quite a bit too. Like you said, if Trae Young is more owned than him, I just think Cade's a better option. He's been a little bit limited since he came back, but it's a big game. It also has a pretty close spread. They're slight favorites over the Knicks at home. So I'm okay with him. I think Brunson's a pretty good play with the Knicks down a couple starters. He's also been limited, but I don't really think he's going to be mega chalk or anything. So I kind of like all these guys. You can make a case for quite a few spend ups at point guard, but there's obviously also really good cheap stuff there.
Yeah, like I'm not going to be mad at all if somebody's like, oh, I'm definitely playing Trae or Brunson or Halliburton. There's nothing wrong with any of those guys. Obviously, Trae is the best projection of the slate. Thing is, though, like if Ja is really going to come in as like the lowest owned option of those guys, that's very exciting to me. So that's where I'm at right now. That said, I'm not starting my build off with Ja. I'm starting my build off with Ty Jerome. Even with all the other value opening up, specifically with the Pels only having 8 bodies, Jerome still looks like the best play on the entire board. The Cavs are sitting all their main guys. Jarrett Allen with the faux start here. We don't know for sure how much he's even going to play, but you said in Discord he has this 82 game start streak going, so they're at least going to let him do that. I don't have a lot of confidence in Jarrett Allen, but I do have a lot of confidence in Ty Jerome. And then right behind him is Elfrid Payton, 3.9K, good projection. He's going to have all the minutes he can handle. Are we on triple-double watch with Elfrid?
I guess. New Orleans has 8 dudes. Alvarado's not one of them. Obviously, McCollum and DeJounte and all the other guys are out. So old ass Elf is going to get a ton of run. I think Jerome is obviously a great play. Like, I have him as a core play. I think you should play him obviously in cash and single entry and stuff. And it's easier to fade him on FanDuel, I think, where you can play Elf, you can play Morant at point guard, or Trae Young, or Cade, or Brunson. And then at shooting guard, you can play like Antonio Reeves, Anthony Edwards, guys like that. So on DK, Jerome's probably a must. On FanDuel, I don't think he's a total must. Still a great play. He could put up 50 fantasy points at a cheap salary. So not inclined to fade him fully, but 5.9 on FanDuel, he kind of has to do stuff to get there. So not a lock, but pretty close to one.
Yeah, I'm locking him in. I'm not really thinking twice. It's just about like reliability and stuff. Like there's these other Pels guys, like that's more where you're looking. If you're not going to play Jerome, you're like, okay, well, I could save like $1,000 and go play one of these sacky ass Pels. Like there is logic to it and logic against it because the Pels are shorthanded, so these guys are going to get a lot of run. But we have definitely seen this 8-player rotation thing blow up in our face before because they're not good players. Like if they're not very good players, or like the guys on the bench who are like your punts at 3K flat, if they're not getting enough run and crushing in that time, they're not going to be better than Jerome. So I think Jerome is a must across the board. We're pretty aligned there anyways here. But if you are going to play some Pels, Elfrid Payton definitely pops at 3.9. As far as other value, like you can entertain some other guys just to get different. Reese Beekman still has a role with the Nets, 4.3K. The Bucks situation, Giannis questionable. So Ryan Rollins versus Kevin Porter Jr. What do we say every single time we even consider these guys? Play the one that's less owned. I don't think either of them are going to be that owned though, because considering all the value we're getting here, are there any other values at point guard that you're eyeing?
I think KPJ is a really good play, especially on DK where he's super cheap. On FanDuel, he's pretty expensive, but Giannis is questionable. Dame is out. Portis is back, but KPJ's been starting with Giannis out of late, so he could go from being an unknown value to like the best value on the slate, depending on what happens with Giannis. But you know, if we don't get that news by lock, I think KPJ is a really strong tournament play and someone I'd be interested in no matter what. Other than that, I think Beekman is still playable. Starting for the Nets, Atlanta's a good matchup. I'm not dying to play Brooklyn on this slate, but they do have a few guys who are still popping as decent values. And then if you want to play the blowout angle with this Cleveland-Indiana game, Cleveland is a pretty sizable underdog given the state of their lineup. I think McConnell is a pretty interesting high-end or like large field, low-end tournament option, just given his upside. Could see a few more minutes depending on what happens with the game. So as of now, I'm kind of getting a lot of McConnell, even though it feels pretty gross.
All righty. Interesting. All right. Over to shooting guard we go. Anthony Edwards leads the way with a massive 46-point fantasy projection. I wish he was lower owned because he has been very butt lately, but I love Ant here. The Ant versus Ja thing is kind of cool to run us out of here with the 9:30 game. That's about it up top at shooting guard. You can certainly make a case for Dyson Daniels or Desmond Bane. I just don't really feel super obligated to play those guys. Other than Ant, it's going to be the value. Antonio Reeves stands out big time with the Pels shorthanded. He looks really good at 4K. You can make a case for Mikal Bridges at 5.7, Miles McBride if he starts at 5K. And then we're looking at a lot of other punts here. So what do you think about Ant, and do you want to pay up for anybody else besides him?
3 of the Angels outfielders now have multi-homer games, so that's pretty cool.
Hey, Trout, yay!
Yeah, not really on that. Like Edwards is great just because it's a good game, especially for Minnesota. He's been pretty bad since Randall came back relative to his ceiling, but small slate. I don't think Giannis is going to play, so he's one of the better spends. Other than that, I think cheap stuff is where you're going. I think Lester Quinones, another cheap Pelican, super inexpensive around the industry, is going to have to play by default. So I'm okay with that. Reeves is obviously the better play. Safer floor, likely starting, but Quinones is viable just like every other Pelican. Mikal Bridges on DK is a pretty good value without Hart and Anunoby. Should see more usage as a result. Miles McBride likely going to start because of that situation. And then I think guys like LeVert, Dyson Daniels are always tournament viable.
Yeah, and like Sam Merrill at 3.3, I'm okay with that. It's just funny because like don't worry about the value. Like there's tons of value. Just play the best value there is. And I think the better way to get different on this slate is going to be with the studs. Like for instance, if Ja Morant is actually sub 20% to close out the night, I'm going to play Ja Morant. Just that kind of thing. All right, moving on to small forward here. We have a really, really assy position. Somebody asked in Discord, who do you play at small forward? And I was like, Pels guys, I guess. You got Keon Brooks, Antonio Reeves, and low down there, you have Jamal Cain, Jamal Cain is still in play at 3.2K because they only have 8 bodies. But Keon Brooks and Antonio Reeves lead the way. I prefer Antonio Reeves by a smidge, but they're pretty much the same play. And then, of course, you have some guys we already talked about. Mikal Bridges is one of them. DeAndre Hunter looks really good here, too, at 4.3. That's probably it. I guess you could feel good about Kuz at 6.6 if Giannis is out, but he's not really the buck that I want if Giannis does miss because he's been pretty bad in that spot. But he would certainly be on the table for sure.
Yeah, he'd get more usage, but with Portis there, it's not as clear as it was before when Portis was suspended. So he's not bad though. Like if he's going to be under-owned, I'm good with that. I agree about Brooks. I agree about Reeves. We didn't mention Sam Merrill, I don't think, but he should start given the situation with Cleveland.
I
Super
sure
cheap,
did, sir.
especially on DK. Isaac Okoro, similar thing. DeAndre Hunter's okay. Tosani Woma, if you want to roll the dice on Brooklyn, fine. Max Lewis, same shit, but pretty gross. If you're not paying up for Ant, you're just punting and hoping for the best.
Yeah, pretty much. The nice thing is there's a lot to choose from there. And if you pop into Discord, we will help you work through the madness as you finalize your lineups. All right, at power forward, if Giannis is in, he looks great. There's way too much value to not play Giannis, I think, if he does play. It doesn't sound like he's going to, though. So then we're looking at guys like we already talked about, Kuz and Bobby Portis. I prefer Bobby Portis here, but you can definitely play Kuz as well. I just like that Bobby, it can also be slid over to center, and, he's cheaper. Siakam okay, Julius okay. I think JJJ stands out a little bit, 10% owned. I like that. And just another guy to throw into the best game of the night. Carlo Makovic still looks really good at 4.6. No Kelly Olynyk. All the main guys are down for the Pels. It's basically him and Kyler Kelly at center. So he looks really good at 4.6. And that's probably going to do it. I think I'm looking at Giannis if he's in, or I'm looking to save here. I think, and like I said, JJJ for tournaments is interesting.
Yeah, Makovic is a core play. I had Achua as a core play before the New Orleans news, but no Hart, no Anunoby, no Robinson, so he should start. He could play backup minutes to Towns, so a lot of ways Precious can get the minutes super cheap on DK, so still an awesome play, in my opinion, even if he's not quite a core play. You can make a case for Robinson Earl just because New Orleans is down to 8. They need someone to play big, like the front court minutes. He's capable of doing that, so pretty good play there. I don't mind Timmy on FanDuel where you can play him at power forward. Like the Brooklyn situation is what it is. Dean Wade, another cheap Cleveland guy worth a shout, and then Trendon Watford with the Brooklyn thing.
Yeah, I didn't mention Precious Achua. He looks great. 3.3K if he starts. I just don't see a way around that. He just looks like a really, really easy click. At center, a lot of these same guys can be played. Cat is one of them that we have not mentioned yet. He looks awesome with a couple guys down for the Knicks. Just a little extra usage. Obviously, the Pistons are not the most friendly matchup, but, he's sub 10K here. He has a nice projection. I have no problem getting the Cat if that's where he land. Right now, I do have him with Ja and Anthony Edwards, so I'm fine with that. I think I'd rather go up and get Giannis if Giannis is in, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Onyeka's fine. Like, the price feels bad, but he's been crushing lately. So if you want to pay for Onyeka, he's not going to be super owned. I don't hate it. I'm just not personally going to do it. Rudy Gobert just feels like a better play. 1.7K cheaper, almost the same projection, about the same ownership. So you can do that. Rudy again looks good. And then we're looking at the value here. Like, I don't really feel like we need to play with like Zach Edey and stuff when we have Carlo Makovic and Precious Achua and Bobby. Like, there's just better plays, I think.
I think Edey's the good tournament play. Gobert, both of them playing quite well. Edey's minutes have been up since they fired the coach, so I assume that's correlated. He's still kind of affordable. He's a good per minute guy. It's the best game of the night. So I would still have Edey in the player pool, especially on DK where he's under 6K. Other than that, Portis, even if Giannis is in, I think Portis is okay. Lopez, if Giannis is out, is going to look a lot better. Robinson Earl, I mentioned, being center only on FanDuel is not great, but he's cheap. Should get tons of minutes. Kyler Kelly, a little cheaper than Robinson Earl, but I'd rather play
true GOAT.
I'd rather play Robinson Earl, I think, than Kyler Kelly. And then, like Towns at the high end. Duran is a pretty good GPP play who is probably going to be under 10% owned on this slate. As he was the other day, shockingly. So I'm okay with that. He got into foul trouble the other night, but should be fine.
Yeah, good call on Edey. I feel like, the matchup with Rudy is obviously not ideal, but you're right. Minutes have been up. He's been crushing. So I would keep him in the player pool. I don't think I would play him over Makovic or Precious personally, but I do think he looks totally fine if you want to get him in there. All right, that wraps up our position by position breakdown. Let's end things with our strategy and flag plant of the night.
So this will look a lot different if Giannis is out. I think if he's in, you kind of have to play him just
Probably.
because he's the top overall play and there's no Dame and it's a great game environment. The Pels can't protect the rim, but I assume he's going to be out, which should make Towns, who's already chalky, even chalkier. I don't think fading Towns is a bad idea and instead prioritizing the pay-ups in Memphis, Minnesota, Edwards, Morant, Jackson, Gobert, stuff like that. So play the Pelicans value, play the Cavs value, and then load up on this last game of the night.
Yeah, man, I'm not going to differentiate just for the sake of doing so. I agree. I feel like it's crazy that the best game of the night, maybe it's just because it's the last game and it starts an hour and a half after the other ones do, but every good piece in there feels a little bit too low owned here. So if that stays, it will be interesting to see if it fluctuates a lot if Giannis is when he's officially ruled out, because then naturally some ownership's going to trickle down to Ja and Anthony Edwards and some of these other guys. But like Bane, JJJ, those guys are not being owned at all, probably anyways. So getting into those the secondary pieces after Ja and Edwards is pretty interesting. All right, that is going to do it for us. Hopefully this does help you out to get finalized core plays and advice leading up to lock. Hit up our Patreon, just $5.99 for the month for that, and our MLB plays and everything else we have to offer. We appreciate you watching. Hit that like button and subscribe to catch future videos. Thanks and good luck.